Hello, everybody. Jonathan Poley here with West Coast Weather. Today is February 9th, and we're going to talk about the break that we're getting, especially for Southern California, from the historic storm over the past week or so. You can see the remnants of this historic rainfall maker that is pushing down south into Mexico and weakening. It's bringing some cloud cover and some moisture into the southern U.S. But then you can see that a colder air and a trough of low pressure starting to push down over the western United States. And you can see some spin with a low pressure system over eastern Idaho near that border with Wyoming. But you can see that there's some cumulus and some showers over parts of Southern California, and there's also some showers with the approaching system along the southwest BC and Washington and Oregon coastlines as well, not really bringing that much other than maybe some drizzle and light rain. But then you can see we got multiple more frontal systems that are going to be potentially bringing some precipitation in the parts of the Pacific Northwest over this coming weekend and into early next week. So we'll talk about that as well. And then it looks like California is going to be having a break for the next week or so, but it looks like the pattern may change again in the next 10 days or so and bring another active pattern to California, but we'll continue to watch that as we go. So if you guys enjoy these videos and find them informative, just please hit the like button, subscribe buttons down below. It helps get my video out to more people, helps the algorithm out, so it's very much appreciated. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now we're looking at general ridge and trough positions on the EuroPML on the left and the GFS on the right. This gives us a good comparison on how the models are agreeing with each other. You can see that they're basically exactly the same right now as they should be, as this is this earlier this morning, so the models should be in very much agreement with each other. And if we just play this out, we can see that we have this transient ridge that moves through the Pacific Northwest and much of the West Coast, kind of shutting off precipitation for just a bit. But as we go through later Saturday in the Sunday, though, you can see this little weak trough. It's a little stronger than the EuroPML, but still there on the GFS is going to bring a weak system in the southwest British Columbia, bring some light to moderate mountain snow and also some light to moderate rain into the lowlands. And that kind of kicks out and drops over the interior mountain west as we go through later on Monday. But you can kind of see this opens up this trough right over British Columbia and parts of the northern Pacific Northwest. This is going to allow for some chillier air to move down around mid to late week. And this could bring some freezing temperatures to parts of western Washington, Oregon, southwest BC. But it's not looking like any sort of Arctic outbreak or anything like that. There may be some higher hilltop snow showers and stuff, but really not looking that impactful at this time. But you can see that there's a couple more impulses that kind of move through. The GFS is kind of starts to disagree a bit right now with a ridge over the interior mountain west with a trough over the intermountain west on the GFS, though. So the EuroPML kind of keeps that trough a little closer to the shoreline, and that pushes that ridge over. But then you got the GFS, it's got this stronger ridge of high pressure that's up over British Columbia and Alaska, and that kind of allows for this trough to kind of move underneath it. So there's some mild disagreement, but there should be some sort of precipitation systems coming through during the late week time frame, and we'll just continue to watch what these systems do. And now looking at the 6-hour precipitation type on the EuroPML, you can see some showers along the west coast, say as this weak frontal system and trough kind of starts moving out east of the area. But then you can see this weak system that the EuroPML and GFS were showing moving in the British Columbia. You can see this brings some light mountain snows and some rain to parts of the lowlands of western Washington, Oregon, and southwest British Columbia. And you can see that brings showers and potential some convergent zone activity for the Puget Sound later on Monday. But you can see it mostly kicks up by later on Monday night. Then we look to get a bit of a break, and the European and GFS, even though the upper levels look a bit different, they have some sort of system, frontal system moving through later on Wednesday and the Thursday. And you can see this one's going to have a little bit more moisture to work with as this low pressure system sets up offshore. This has the potential to bring some decent mountain snows as well as some pretty decent rain to the parts of the lowlands. But you can see that initial system moves through, but you can see that the snow levels start rising. There's not as much snow on the mountains as this next system right in behind it starts moving next week. And the GFS also has this. They're kind of disagreeing on the exact strength of this system, but there's going to be some sort of system moving through the west coast. And then you can see as we go through near the 10-day time frame, the models start bringing more storms into California as well, which we have to keep an eye on that because there is potential for another pretty impactful storm system for California. But thankfully, it's over 7 days away, so they can get a bit of a breather before the active weather returns. And now looking at the same thing on the GFS model, we can see that weak system moving in during the late Saturday and the Sunday timeframe with some showers continuing into Monday for some of the mountains and parts of the lowlands of Washington and southwest British Columbia. But then you can see that also that next storm system, maybe a bit weaker on the GFS, starting to move through on the Wednesday, Thursday timeframe, bring some mountain snows and lowland rain, maybe some breezy conditions to parts of the coastline, the northwest interior of Washington, including the San Juans, Island County over there, and along the Strait One to Fuca. But we're not really expecting anything more than maybe some gusts 30 at the 35 miles per hour with that. But then you can see additional systems possible after that, according to the GFS, maybe starting to aim towards California a bit more. Now looking at precipitable water anomaly, this is just showing us like how much moisture there is in the air compared to normal, and the reds and browns are above normal precipitable water, and then the blues and greens are below normal. So you can see the kind of the cold trough out over the sub parts of the interior Mountain West that's bringing some drier air and some of those showers. But then you can see that weak system bringing in that moisture later on Saturday in the Sunday, continuing some of that moisture in the Monday before it dries out. But then you can see the next system on its heels going into later on Wednesday, bringing that frontal system with mountain snow and rain. And then you can see this almost atmospheric looking feature, but you can see that's more parallel to the coastline. So that causes a lot of the moisture to kind of just move through rather quickly. But if this were the setup in some place, that could result in a pretty strong atmospheric river. But you can see it kind of moves all the way south of California relatively quickly as we go through the 10-day time frame. It would bring some decent precipitation totals to much of California and the West Coast, though. Now looking at total precipitation in inches on the European model, if we just play this through, you can see generally light precipitation until this midweek system comes in. You can see maybe about a ½ inch or more of rain as we get through Wednesday morning for some places. The mountains of southwest British Columbia and western British Columbia may be getting 1 to 3 inches of rainfall up there as well. And a lot of that will be snow in the higher terrain, which will be beneficial. But you can see that next system and the system after that bring a bit more moisture. Maybe the totals up for Seattle approaching 1 to 2 inches, and the Vancouver Island looks to get hammered pretty well with maybe over 6 inches of precipitation in some places in those coastal mountains, and the Olympics as well in parts of the Cascades in southwest British Columbia. But you can see it really does not affect much of California other than maybe some of the northwest coastline. But then you can see that kind of changes at the end of the model run as the precipitation moves all the way south of Los Angeles. Now looking at the total precipitation inches on the national blend of models, this kind of gives us a better idea on how the models are agreeing right now. But you can see through the 10-day time frame, the national blend of models is kind of not as robust with the precipitation for much of Washington and Oregon, southwest British Columbia as the European models. But this is the average of all the models, so it's showing that not all the models are showing some really heavy precipitation for parts of Vancouver Island and such. But you can see that it is targeting California a bit more, so that's showing me that more models are kind of trending towards some of those systems being more impactful for California as we go through later this coming week. But it's still a bit far out to talk about those California systems in depth, so we'll just continue to keep an eye on those through the next couple days. Now looking at 10-meter wind gusts just to see what wind speeds look to be. You can see that low pressure system moving into western British Columbia over on Saturday in the Sunday. You can see it's bringing some breezy conditions up parts of Vancouver Island, maybe bring some breezy winds down the Strait One to Fuca, but really nothing more than maybe 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts with that, and maybe some 40-plus-mile-per-hour wind gusts on the Vancouver Island coastline, which is pretty normal for this time of the year. And then you can see that we kind of get a bit of a break with any wind, maybe some slight breeziness, but then you can see our next frontal system moving in on Wednesday. This may bring some decently strong winds to parts of the Oregon and Washington coastlines, but nothing more than maybe 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts, which is, they can handle that down there. And then you can see the next frontal system, and you can see it's bringing some breezy conditions up towards Island County and the San Juans, but really nothing, just your regular winter frontal systems bringing in some moderate rain and some breezy to blustery winds. But you can see continued systems and breeziness possible after this week. Now looking at total snow Kuchera ratio in inches, we can kind of give a good view of the mountain snows over the next 10 days. You can really see it starts really piling up with these systems that come later this week as some of that colder air drops over parts of the Pacific Northwest and British Columbia. That's going to allow for some pretty hefty mountain snows to pile up, especially up in southwest BC, where some of the models are showing well over 2 to 4 feet of snow potentially in some of the highest terrain. You can see the Cascade to Washington also getting in on the action potentially. There's going to be still plenty of variation in the amount, but you can see this is a pretty good signal. You can see some sort of snow starting to pop up for the lowlands, but that's really, it's too far out to say anything like that. If the air does get chilly enough, maybe a few flakes in some of the higher hilltops, but really not looking at any sort of impactful lowland winter storm or anything like that. But you can see that snow's also getting down to the Sierra Nevadas as well, which is very beneficial. Now looking at the same thing, the total snow in inches on the national blend of models, this kind of gives us a better idea on what all the other models are saying as we looked at the precipitation earlier. And you can also see it's more moderated out of all the snowfall, and you can see it's not as high as the European models, but that's because this is a blend of a bunch of models, so it kind of all averages out. So some models are going to show less than some are going to show more, and that all averages out. But you can see that it's really highlighting the Sierra Nevadas as it was also showing that heavier precipitation for California, so that's resulting in higher snowfall totals down there. But you can see that the Cascades and parts of the Cascades in British Columbia, Washington, Oregon are all showing potentially maybe over a foot of snow in some of the highest terrain, maybe some snow in the passes as well, but really not looking like any super impactful mountain snowstorm. Now looking at the 2-meter max temperatures from the National Blend models, you can see really high temperatures in the 30s and 40s out east, with some 40s and low 50s out for western places of southwest BC, Washington, Oregon. You can see high temperatures in the 50s for much of the central valleys of California and the parts of the coastline. This really continues, maybe highs getting towards 50 in Seattle, but then I want to show you as we go through later this week, you can see that the temperatures really stay the same, but as we go through Friday and Saturday, it starts chilling on the national blend of models a bit, but this is also an average, so it's not going to really show any of those really extreme temperatures, but there's potential for more of a warm up as some more Pacific systems start moving into the region. Now looking at 2-meter temperatures, you can see that it's getting below freezing out east each evening and morning. That's kind of typical this time of the year. Low temperatures in the 30s out west in the western Washington, Oregon, southwest BC. And you can see it's also getting to below freezing some of those higher terrain of California as well, where there's some frost advisories up near the Bay Area for some of that higher terrain. But you can see also low temperatures in the 30s. Definitely some of the coldest days of the winter so far for parts of California as that trough of cold air moves down behind that historic flooding event down there. But you can see really low temperatures staying below freezing out east and staying in the 30s for much of western Washington, Oregon, and then maybe getting it back up in the low temperatures in the 40s for much of the lowlands of California as we go through later this week. There's also the potential for some a high sneaker wave threat today and through this weekend for parts of the Oregon, Washington coastlines as the systems turn out over the Pacific Ocean. Waves will run up beaches higher than normal. Sneaker waves threat is high. Actions avoid jetties, headlands, and logs near waterline beaches. Use caution on beaches and watch out for large sneaker waves. So just heed those warnings out there. Now look at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center. This is valid for February 14th through the 18th. They're highlighting that above average temperatures potentially through this time frame as more Pacific systems start moving through after that. A bit chilly air later this week for parts of the Pacific Northwest. In California as well. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook. They're also highlighting that California with a bullseye once again for that precipitation. There's still plenty of time to still look at this over the coming days, but definitely looking like some above average precipitation expected to continue for California. It's definitely an active part of the winter for California, but you can see a near normal precipitation for parts of Washington, Northern Oregon, and much of Idaho as those systems kind of look the trend southward, but there's still going to be a lot of variation in the models over the coming days, so we'll just keep a close eye on it. Now looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, this is the February 16th through the 22nd. You can see above average temperatures are highlighted as well with the specific systems, and they're also highlighting the above average precipitation for much of almost the entire California, much of the West Coast actually, then getting down to near normal for parts of northern Washington, northern Idaho, and northwest Montana. So definitely plenty to look at, especially for California and a lot of the West Coast as we go through the next week or two. Well, that's it for this video, everybody. Well, I bet everybody in Southern California is really glad for the break from all the rain. I heard that there was a couple casualties already reported down there, which is very unfortunate. And that's why I was making those extra strong wordings on those California videos the last couple of days, because I knew that there was going to be potential for life-threatening flash flooding. I don't say words like that lightly, and that's why I said it, because there was a risk of life-threatening flash flooding, and it actually did happen. So that's why I was saying those things. I hope everybody has plenty of time to fix things down there. I really hope all the repair efforts are good down there as well. So I just hope everybody enjoyed this video. Enjoy the breakdown there, California, and then we're going to get a few more systems through this weekend and the early next week for much of the Pacific Northwest, and starting the bullseye California as we go through later next weekend potentially. But really just benign winter weather it continues over parts of the Pacific Northwest. Welcome break for California, but I hope everybody enjoys these videos and found this one informative as well. Just please hit the like button, subscribe buttons down below. It's very much appreciated, and I'll talk to everybody in the next video.